Hey everybody, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today we're going to be playing through Rockman 3 for the PS1, or Rockman 3 Complete Works. Now this is a part of a 6-game series in 1999 for the PS1 that featured ports of the original 6 Rockman games from the Famicom, or Mega Man games as we know them in North America. Now what's special about these ports is that they've eradicated pretty much all of the slowdown in the games, and so games like Rockman 3 in particular really benefit from this. Rockman 3 on the Famicom and NES is one of the most slowdown ridden games on the platform, and to be able to play it without slowdown is a treat. It is very fun. I mean, the game's always fun regardless of the slowdown or not, but it's even better without the slowdown. It's really fantastic. So what we're going to do is go through this entire game, and we'll talk about just, you know, normal Mega Man 3 strategies. Nothing too terribly special here. I've done Mega Man 3 many times on my channel now, and, you know, if I get a chance to do it again, you know, another time, then I'll take it. And this is my chance right now with Rockman 3 Complete Works on PS1. So, now, what's interesting about Rockman 3 Complete Works and any of the Complete Works games is that you've got a variety of different options. You've got difficulty settings, you've got pocket station support, and the second option here is you've got what's called Navi mode, and that's what we're going to be playing through today. So Navi mode adds some extra graphical touches to things like your energy bars. It updates your weapon selection screen, which is actually very welcome to Mega Man 2 and 3 in particular. And it also does a couple of other things. Beats will appear from Mega Man 5 and basically guide you in the right direction if you want some extra power-ups and whatnot. So extra, quality of life changes that are welcome. Now the whole tutorial system and beats and things like that, I don't really care about that much, but it is a nice little feature, especially for brand new players just starting off with the Mega Man series. So yeah, we picked Snake Man to start. He's usually the guy that I start off with first because I just really like the level, I like the music. It's probably my favorite music in the game. And, just some interesting design choices here. You got these snake heads you can shoot, which is always fun. Yeah, so some other quality of life changes is they've actually added a turbo fire button, which you can do by pressing triangle, just like so. You can see how fast I can shoot with the triangle button, which is nice. So no more button mashing if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to do that. Also, they've mapped the slide, which is down and jump normally, to circle. So if you want to just press circle to slide, you could do that like a Mega Man X game. The Mega Man X dash functionality on PS1 versions of the game was mapped to circle by default. If we go up to that right ladder, we can get ourselves some canisters, which can sometimes give us things like extra lives or energy tanks, but those were just basic energy pellets, nothing special there. And for these snakes right here, I like to just sort of sit back and, hopefully avoid their projectiles. Their projectiles they feel a little random to me, a little tough to avoid, a little tough to go through them damageless. Super tight jump right there, one of the tightest jumps in any of the Mega Man games, so you've got to watch out for that. Now, I'm not sure if this is an issue with this version specifically, or if it was always like this in Mega Man 3 on NES, but I'm finding that these cloud platforms we're going to have to jump across here are a little glitchy in this version of the game. I tried to do another Let's Play recording just prior to this, and they completely pushed me off of them, even when I was dead center. So you have to really watch out for these platforms. They are one of the glitchier parts of Mega Man 3. They can be glitchy in the original game too, but I feel like they might actually be glitchier in this specific version of this specific port of the game. So you've really got to be careful about that when you're playing this version in particular. These cloud missiles here, you shoot them once and then they'll basically just fly straight across the screen wherever they are. So I like to try to shoot them when they're higher up, so they just go right over me, or I'll just jump over them like that. That was actually a good pattern there. They can be fairly random and fairly difficult to deal with. I'm going to try to dash as quickly as I can right here and jump over Snake Man just like that. And we're going to go ahead and just rinse and repeat for the rest of the boss fight. This is a great boss fight. I like the pattern. It's not too terribly difficult to deal with. But it's just fun. It's a unique arena shape, which is another reason I like this fight. But this fight basically moves like it's in molasses in the original NES version of the game. But now we get to play it without any slowdown. It's really fantastic. So it just makes the game, well, for one, it makes the game go a little bit faster because you're not inundated with so much slowdown, but it also makes some of the boss fights more enjoyable because they move at a much snappier pace. So one extra feature about this version of the game is you do have PS1 memory card support. Now you can still use the classic passwords, but you can also save your data to your memory card, which is nice. So we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to be going right back into the game. And let's see, who do we have here? Magnet Man, okay. I actually shut my eyes and just rotated the stick around, or the D-pad around. So it doesn't really matter what order I do these bosses in. We're just gonna we're gonna try to do all the original 8 bosses with just our Buster. So our Mega Buster shot, which is our basic pea shooter right here. And Magnet Man's level could be pretty fun as well. I like these early platforms. Some interesting platforming there with the magnet mechanism up top, or the magnet mechanic. So this right here is Proto Man, and he likes to test Mega Man. And so what I like to do is try to get behind him first. And I try to just jump with him. That way all my shots collide and I don't miss as often. And these guys, you gotta watch out for their homing missiles that pop out. And they can be a little tricky to do it. So I like to try to just pummel them as quickly as possible. Now, while I do have the turbo functionality on hand, I'm not going to be using it that often, and when I do, I'll try to mention it. Like right now. Just go ahead and use the turbo functionality since I just mentioned it. And the reason I don't use auto-fire functionality in games like this is that, for me, it's more fun to button mash in games like Mega Man. It's a part of the skill, you know, that can be had, or can be displayed as you play the game, and it's just more fun for me. What I need to do right here is jump right here, and then jump again, and then jump again, just like that. This one's a little bit easier. All we have to do is just jump across, and then jump across again. And same here, just run, jump, and then we're good. So now, if you defeat Needle Man, you'll get yourself Rush Jet. So we've already got Rush Coil. Rush Coil you basically just start with. And Rush Coil acts as a spring, like a springboard. You just bounce way up into the air, which is fun. And Rush was actually introduced to Mega Man 3. For those of you guys that aren't too familiar with the Mega Man series, it basically Rush started here in this, in Mega Man 3. And so yeah, you start with Rush Coil, and you can use that throughout the game. And then after certain bosses, you'll get either Rush Jet or Rush Marine. And fighting Needle Man, defeating Needle Man is what gives you Rush Jet. And Rush Jet is insanely useful. Mega Man 3's Rush Jet is probably the most useful Rush Jet. And basically it just lets you fly anywhere, you know, around the screen. And so those disappearing block sections, what you can do is just use Rush Jet to get right past them. Now there are certain sections in, maybe not this Mega Man specifically, but in other Mega Mans where you can just use Rush Coil to get past the disappearing block sections. But in Mega Man 3, it's best to generally use Rush Jet to do that. Alright, second boss down. So, you know, one of the things I like the most about this version of the game, playing Navi mode, is the updated menu system. So in Mega Man 3, much like Mega Man 2, you had 2 separate menu screens you had to scroll between in order to select certain weapons. And so it made the weapon selection process a little tedious. But in this version, it's a menu system that's more akin to something like Mega Man 4, 5, or 6, where everything's just on the same screen, which is very nice. Alright, so this is Sparkman's level. This is a pretty fun level as well. I mean, most of the levels in this game are pretty fun. I do think some levels are more fun than others, and I think Sparkman's level is probably one of the more enjoyable ones for me personally. So we just sort of speed our way through. We can just slide like that. And these guys right here, I didn't really explain them on Snake Man's level, but you can only hit them when their eyes or visors are open. So they usually have a visor up, and it comes down, revealing a big black space. And when that happens, you can do some damage to them. Otherwise, your shots would just reflect off of them. So you gotta watch over those spikes up top. And we just do some baby hops here to get past these guys without taking damage and without stopping. Just use my auto fire right there. Those guys only take 3 hits or so. More auto fire again, just like that, and again, and again, and again. Why not? And there's Beat. So Beat doesn't normally appear in Mega Man 3. He didn't actually come into the picture until Mega Man 5. So it's kind of cool that they introduced him, or brought him back for this version of the game, for its Navi mode. Sort of ties this to the later, ties this with the later Mega Man games, or ties this to the later Mega Man games, which is nice. So right here, I'm gonna actually stop and just kill these things, and sometimes you can just despawn this one. Didn't work. But let's just do a baby hop here, baby hop there, slide right here, and then full jump right there to get through that without stopping. Alright, so Sparkman, another unique arena. I like these unique arenas for the most part. And so what Sparkman likes to do is, you know, do a sort of a spread attack. How many times he jumps seems to be completely random. And so if you just kind of get cornered like this, like I did, you could just get screwed and just take a bunch of damage, unfortunately. So that is actually one of my least favorite parts about some of the bosses in Mega Man 3. I do find that some of them are just too random to the point where it's too inconsistent to do them without taking damage. So, you know, you will take damage, pretty much guaranteed, on some of these boss fights. Unless you're using the boss weapons against them. You use the boss weapons against them, you do way more damage, and that's how you can take them out without taking damage. But I like fighting them with, I like fighting them with just the Buster. And I like being able to try to dodge them, you know, skillfully, but there are just some parts of this game where you just can't do that. It's pretty much impossible. You know, the bosses are so large for one, their projectiles are large, the arenas can be oddly shaped, and you can just get cornered, and there's nothing you can do about it, basically. So, let's just rotate around again. Who have we got? We've got Hardman. Oh, geez, Hardman. Hardman gives me a lot of trouble these days for some reason. I don't know his pattern anymore. I used to know his pattern perfectly, and I just can't seem to figure it out again as an adult. But a couple of points of contention on Hardman's level is you've got these huge insects that fly overhead, and what you could do is just despawn them. It's the easiest way to deal with them. Just get rid of them. Just push the screen over, and then continue moving back. You got some choppers that pop up here that will try to snip you, and we got some health there that we don't need. And good section right here to show off Magnet Man's weapon. Magnet Man's weapon has a tendency of basically just homing in on enemies and doing some serious damage, depending on the enemy type. Another nice feature is being able to use the shoulder keys to scroll through your weapons. Unfortunately, you cannot scroll through the rush weapons, which is odd. You have to still pull up the menu to access Rush Coil. But you can actually scroll off of Rush Coil if you want, which is nice, at least, I guess. These monkeys here, they climb up, and when you get close to them, they drop down and start bouncing around like monkeys, I guess. Crazy cracked up monkeys. Cracked out monkeys. So what I'm going to do is just sit here like that. Nice little thing you can do with those ball and chain guys. I guess that's what I'll call them. I don't know the names of any of the enemies in these games. I don't really usually follow the names in Mega Man games. But there we go. He just actually fell down to his death, which is nice. I don't have to deal with him. Those monkeys can be a little tricky to deal with. Some more bulldozer guys right here. I'm gonna go ahead and just use my auto fire just to make life a little bit easier on them, or not on them. Well, yeah, I guess it is easier on them. I killed them faster, so you know they're on this Earth for a lesser amount of time. So I'm gonna also despawn these bees that are going to appear here, just like so. But I have to make sure I'm just constantly moving if I don't want to take damage here. And another Proto Man fight, and this is another kind of oddly shaped arena that makes dodging Proto Man really difficult. See, it took a hit right there. I feel like if this was a later version, or if this game came out, you know, Mega Man 3, if this came out later than 1990, probably would have had better collision detection. And I mean later than 1990 as in like on a later system, not an NES or Famicom. Maybe if it came out as a 16-bit game, originally, maybe the collision detection would have been better. Or maybe a 32-bit game, I don't know. But this actually did get a conversion to the Sega Mega Drive and Sega Genesis as Mega Man The Wily Wars. And so technically it did get a 16-bit version, but its collision detection wasn't really much better than the original Famicom versions. So the biggest thing about Hardman is you don't want to take damage from his hands or his arms and have him be right underneath you or land right on top of you, not underneath you. If you do that, you're going to end up taking extra damage, and if you touch Hardman here, he does like a quarter of your health. It's a ridiculous amount of damage, so you have to be really, really careful in this fight. So there we go. Doing a little bit better this time than the last couple times I tried him. Now you'll notice that I'm not pummeling him super fast with my shots. I'm not like sitting here mashing the fire button as quickly as I can, and the reason for that is that bosses in this game, and bosses in pretty much all Mega Man games, have invincibility frames. So they take a hit, they go into iframe mode, and then until the iframes wear out, they can't take any more damage. And in Mega Man 3, the iframes are the greatest that they are in pretty much any of the first 6 Mega Man games. And, well, I don't know if they're the greatest of the first 6 Mega Man games, but they're definitely greater than Mega Man's 1 and 2. That's the big thing. And let's go ahead and just do Top Man. We'll save the 3 hardest bosses for last. But yeah, they have a lot of invincibility frames when they take damage in this game. So pummeling them as fast as possible doesn't do you any good. All it does is wear out your thumbs. And so I do know a lot of people that are like, man, I can't button mash at all. It hurts my thumbs. It's like, well, if you're playing a Mega Man game, you don't need to button mash in most situations. Now, it's fun to button mash on enemies where you can just do constant damage. You know, like the bulldozer guys on this level, or, you know, these top apes here. You know, you can button mash as fast as you want, which is nice. Now, you don't have to. But on boss fights, you can't. Even if you want to, there's no point in doing it because you're not going to actually do any damage. Whereas on the regular enemies in this game, you will still do damage, at least, if you button mash. So what we're going to do is actually jump up top here, and to get ourselves an extra life. Because I feel like I might need them over the course of this playthrough. I'm going to actually use Hardman's weapon here. Or not, you know, we can just get knocked right back down. That's fine too, I guess. Go ahead and just get rid of these guys. Slide under here, get an extra life, get some health, and then fall back down here. And switch back over. Actually, you know what? I should be using my L and R triggers more often to just switch right back to, you know, the weapons I want. Especially after I use Rush Coil or Rush Jet. No reason for me to go back into my menu. I just do it habitually because we're gonna go ahead and use our auto fire on this guy too. Oop, took a hit. Yeah, I do it habitually because you have to in the Famicom and NES games. It's mandatory. Whereas in this, you can use your triggers to scroll off, which is a very nice feature. So these cats here, they're a lot like the dogs in Mega Man 2. The dogs from Woodman stage. And you have to fight 3, just like you fight 3 dogs on Woodman stage. So fun enemies to fight. Some of my, you know, some of the more enjoyable enemies to fight. I really like the big enemies that Mega Man 3 throws at you. There are quite a few like that over the course of the game. And this part's kind of tricky to deal with. What I normally like to do is try to shoot and then line up my shot to hit that, and then hit that like that. It's very tricky to do without actually taking damage. And I find that it's more difficult with the PS1 controller than an NES controller. The NES controller is very snappy for these kinds of games. The way the buttons are laid out, I can be much faster with my button presses. But on the PS1 controller, and I'm using an original non-DualShock controller, mind you, it's a lot harder to be very quick and snappy, at least in a Mega Man game like this. If I'm playing something like a shoot 'em up, that it's basically a one-button game with an occasional bomb use on the second button, it's not a big deal. But in a Mega Man game, I just find it really difficult to be super snappy. I don't have as much of a problem with the X games, surprisingly, but the original Mega Man games are more stiff than the later X games in particular. Especially with X, you're constantly dashing. So it's a different gameplay dynamic that I think works better on a PS1 controller. But these classic Mega Man games were meant to be played with the Famicom or NES controller, and trying to translate that to a PS1 controller, it feels weird. And despite playing this multiple times, I'm still not used to it. I'm still not used to it at all. One thing I also do with the PS1 controller is I accidentally do other button presses I don't mean to. So like I'll press circle by accident. I'll just graze it with my thumb. And circle in this actually is mapped to dash. So you can still dash like you can in the original game, down and jump, but you can also just press circle. And so what I find myself doing is accidentally dashing or sliding. Yeah, so it's a little weird. I also find myself sometimes accidentally switching weapons by accident. That was redundant, but I sometimes accidentally switch weapons, and that can be frustrating as well. And that's because of the shoulder keys. You know, it's a really nice function to have, but the way I hold a PS1 controller, my fingers are always basically resting on the shoulder keys. And it's just because of the shape of the PS1 controller. I don't do that with, say, a Super Nintendo controller, because the Super Nintendo controller doesn't have these huge handles and whatnot that a PS1 pad has. What I've actually thought about doing for these games in particular is trying to get myself a different kind of controller. And, you know, someone on one of my Twitch streams actually recommended a Neo Geo CD style controller for PS2, which will also work on PS1 games. And so I thought about maybe trying to invest in one of those eventually and see how that works for something like a Mega Man game. Don't have to worry about shoulder keys as much because they're just very tiny shoulder keys on it, and it's got the same shape of a Neo Geo CD controller. So I don't know, we'll see. So what I want to do is actually get rid of this guy. So let me try to use, I think I can use snakes on him. There we go. And what I'm going to do is actually switch over to Rush Coil. And again, to select Rush, you can't actually use your shoulder keys. It's kind of a weird omission. You know, being able to use the shoulder keys for everything but Rush abilities. So for right here, for these guys, I like to just kind of sit on top of this ladder, not all the way up, but not all the way down either. And you can actually hit these guys kind of in safety. Normally, you can actually slide under their projectiles. You can also jump over their projectiles, which is arguably more satisfying to do because there's more skill involved, but it's also riskier. So if you don't want to take damage, then maybe it's something you don't want to do. And Needle Man here is one of the tougher boss fights to do without using a special weapon. But I wouldn't be able to use a special weapon even if I wanted to, simply because his weakness is Gemini Man. And we haven't actually done Gemini Man yet. So I'm still firing more shots than I need to, but I'm also not mashing fast, so it's not hurting my thumbs at all. I can do this all day, literally. If someone paid me to button mash at this rate all day, I would gladly take up that job role. So one of the problems with Navi mode here that we're doing is that it's got that big exclamation mark on the bottom of the screen. Now, normally that's fine. It doesn't obfuscate any of the gameplay until you fight Needle Man, and then it gets in the way. It completely blocks Mega Man if you're on the bottom left part of the screen. So you gotta watch out for that. Now, I haven't really done a lot of explaining with things like Navi mode, and what Navi mode does, aside from the graphical overhaul and a couple of minor changes, is it does bring up that exclamation box. And so if you're a new player, what you can do is you can press select, and basically Proto Man will pop up and give you some tips. One other thing I didn't mention in this is there are difficulty modes that you can select as well. Unfortunately, the menu system is completely in Japanese, the main menu system, and so I have no idea what I'm doing in the options menu in this game, and I don't know if there have been any translations of the menu. But I've been able to activate an easy mode, but I've read that there's also a hard mode that I haven't been able to activate. And hard mode, I think, apparently it makes you go through the game without any power-up drops or anything like that. So it sounds like a fun mode I would definitely like to try sometime. That would be really cool. But I need to get myself a translation of the options menu first before I even try that. So in Gemini Man stage here, your goal is kind of to take out these flying enemies. They're the most dangerous parts of this first section. You can sometimes run into them as you're trying to jump over pits. But also their fire is a little difficult to avoid. Like I just ran into one of their streams right there, but I got an extra life, thankfully. So it's going to be another extra life down here. And we're going to have to use Rush Jet to get that, actually, unless we get lucky here. Let's see. And actually, there's another trick you can do as well. Oh, we actually ended up getting it. Sometimes I don't get it, but there are a couple of different tricks you can use here. For one, you can actually bring Rush Coil out like this, jump on him like that. Very tricky to do, but it is a very nice tactic to know when you're playing this game. You kind of get Rush so he's hanging off the edge, kind of Castlevania style, and then you can still jump on him like that. So it's a very nice little trick there. And actually, we're going to end up... let's go ahead and use Rush Jet right here. And you'll see why. It'll make this part a little bit easier. So this part's actually really good for power-up drops and whatnot. And actually, I should probably get these since I'm on Rush Jet. Refill my energy as we go. And let's grab this canister, see what's in there. Oh, an energy tank. I will take that, thank you. There we go, energy tank. And that's it. Rush Jet is gone. Let's go ahead and actually switch back over to our regular shot. And actually, let's go ahead and apply this to Rush Jet. Just like so. Because it would be nice to use it later on in this level as well. And I keep habitually just going right back into the menu to deselect Rush Jet. Or any version of Rush, not just Jet. A lot of times I ignore a lot of these little bubbles, but you know, they do drop some good power-ups, so sometimes it's like, you know what, I might as well just go for them. Now, if I do this right, I can actually jump up here just like so. A little tricky to do that, to, you know, walk out of cubbies like that and successfully jump up without bumping your head on the ceiling. So these big penguins like to shoot out these tiny penguins. Not a bad spot to grind up for health, if you're the kind of person that likes to do that in Mega Man games. Probably some of the trickier enemies to deal with in this game without taking damage. And there's some health right there. Let's go ahead and get it. Why not? Let's have full health. And actually, we're going to go ahead and switch back to Rush Coil right here. I could use Rush Jet. I like to use Rush Coil. And actually, we're going to go ahead and switch back to Rush Coil. We need to use it a couple times here. For one, there's an extra life right here. And we got it, and there's also an energy tank coming up right here. Now, these guys are tough to deal with. They shoot these, basically these missiles up. And these sort of dragonfly type things that I haven't really talked about much, they like to shoot across the screen wherever Mega Man is. So what I like to do is jump up and sort of bait them to go across the screen high instead of low. If they go across the screen high, then I don't have to really deal with them. If they go across the screen low, I have to jump. I have to try to jump over them or shoot them. And they take like 3 shots, which is a little tricky to deal with when, you know, you've got a Mega Man-wide platform underneath you, and it's very easy to slip off. If you take damage, you're very much likely to slip off and die. You have to do that section all over again. So the trick with Gemini Man is he likes to shoot at you when you shoot. So what I do is I jump and shoot at the same time. Jump and shoot, jump and shoot, jump and shoot, jump and shoot. And now he's got a second phase as well, which is also pretty tricky to deal with, but same thing, he jumps whenever you shoot. A little bit like Clash Man or Crash Man in Mega Man 2. Oops. And this is bad. I really messed up there. I should have had that fight, but not a big deal. Gemini Man's always been one of the hardest bosses for me in this game, until just recently when I actually learned how to deal with him. I was playing the NES version of Mega Man 3 a few weeks back, and, you know, actually intentionally died at him to try to figure out his pattern. It's one of the nice things about these games, you know, you can actually, if you come here with a lot of extra lives, you can just intentionally kill yourself. And then, you know, try to learn their patterns. And it was very quickly I realized, oh, he jumps whenever you shoot. In the second phase. And in the first phase, he shoots whenever you shoot. So, you know, it was very easy to get him into a, basically a loop. And there we go. It's still a little difficult to do it without taking damage, but I'm much more confident with the fight now that I know those 2 tricks against him. Alright, last boss of the first 8 Robot Monsters is Shadow Man. And Shadow Man is the worst boss fight if you're going to do him if you're gonna fight him with just your Buster Shot. He's completely random, and I really struggle with this fight. So, but we'll see what happens when we get to it. And then after this, we will be doing Mega Man 2 refights. We'll have to go through Spark Man, Gemini Man, Needle Man, and Shadow Man's level all over again with alterations. And in each level, we will fight 2 Mega Man 2 bosses in big armor suits. They're much more difficult to deal with. And so while we've been doing just Buster only on these the first 8 Robot Masters, for the Mega Man 2 refights, we're going to be using boss sub-weapons on them to get rid of them faster and safer. Although I might mess around with a couple of them with just the Buster. We'll see how I feel when we get to them. Some of them are much more doable than others, like Airman and Airman, Bubble Man, and Metal Man in particular are much more doable with just the Buster than other fights like Quick Man or Wood Man. Very, very difficult fights in this version of the game. And these dudes are a little tough to hit with just your Buster Shot, because your Buster just goes right over them. And so what you want to do is try to time your shots to land into them as they jump upwards. But easier said than done. Now this part has a tendency of giving people trouble. And here's let's go ahead and bring up, you know, Proto Man. So I went ahead and hit select to use the exclamation mark. What I like to do here is actually basically push the screen forward just a little bit and then move myself backwards. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up running straight into them as you jump over. So this is a common mistake with Mega Man 3. People like to rush this part and then they just die. So jump forward, push the screen over, just like so. And then that's it. Some more dragonflies here, so we can go ahead and just dash right past them. Not a big deal. You can sometimes try to grind out for health there, but it's really tough to do. So Shadow Man likes to dash across the screen. When he does that, you want to jump over him. But he also likes to use his Shadow Blades, which you can either dash under or you can jump over. And this is why Shadow Man is a pain. It's completely random, very difficult to deal with. And you don't do that much damage. I really feel like this fight should have been balanced out to where Mega Man does more damage. Like on Top Man, Mega Man does 2 blocks of health. I feel like on Shadow Man, you should have also been able to do 2 blocks of health. Got him, first try. Jeez, that was really close. One more hit and I would have been dead. But yeah, it's always been a questionable thing about Mega Man 3 to me, is like some of the boss fights are very unbalanced compared to others. You know, Hard Man is one thing. He's a huge suit of armor, basically. But Shadow Man is this guy that looks more vulnerable, and I feel like you should do more damage than you do. Especially for how random and difficult he is to deal with normally. Yeah, there are some, you know, questionable balance choices in some of these older Mega Man games. Not just Mega Man 3, it's pretty much all of them have some sort of questionable, you know, balance choices. But it is what it is. So, alright, we basically have to fight Mega Man 2 bosses now. And this is actually a really neat thing where you go back to the levels again and they're different. So in this case, you know, when you first went to this level, it was daytime. Now it's nighttime. But now the sections are also a little bit different. The level's a little more difficult. And then you fight Mega Man 2 bosses as well. And we're going to go ahead and just use Rush Coil here. Just like so. And we're going to use Rush Jet on this part. So we can get that extra life. We don't really need the extra life, but I will take it. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to Rush Coil because I want to save my Rush Jet energy. We're going to need it for the second half of this level. It's one of the more infamous parts of Mega Man 3. We're going to actually switch right back to it here. Just to get this energy tank. Go ahead and switch off. Kind of like that. Now, when you switch off and you're on the ladder, Mega Man by default will let loose of the ladder. He'll basically just fall down. So you have to make sure you're still holding up. And this is going to be Airman. I'm going to actually try to fight Airman without specials. But his weakness is Sparkman. Actually, you know what? No, let's go ahead and just switch over to Sparkman, because that is his weakness. Now, what's fun about this version of Airman is that he is actually a little more doable because of the slide functionality. But unfortunately, he's giving me some really bad patterns here. So like right here, oh, I want to demonstrate that. Let's see if he does it again. Nope, he's not going to do it again. Let's go ahead and just kill him. But the ones that are about a tile's height off the ground, you can actually slide under them in Mega Man 3, which was really awesome. You can't do that in Mega Man 2, so... And let's go ahead and use the energy for Rush Jet. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be a little tricky without having much health, but we'll go ahead and try it anyway. So go ahead and jump on Rush Jet, just like so. Go ahead and get this energy. Get this energy as well, and then we'll just go across the screen like that. I'm going to skip that energy just because I didn't want to touch that guy. Oh, look at that. There is actually some slowdown now. This is crazy. That was the first bit of slowdown I've seen. So it looks like they didn't eradicate the slowdown completely. There are a couple of parts where you still get a little bit of that Mega Man 3 slowdown. But for the most part, it's been eradicated. Alright, we're going to use Rush Coil here. And notice I haven't really used Rush Marine. That's because there are only a couple of points in the game where it's really beneficial to use it. If you use Rush Marine out in the open, you can get into him. Oh, he's actually not going to let me. So I guess you have to be underwater, but you can actually go above water once you're in Rush Marine itself. So a trick with these guys is to use Shadow Man's weapon on them, or Shadow Blade. Let's see if I can just get some health back here. And just grind out on these guys. Just like so. I've never actually let this go this long, so it's actually interesting to see how many projectiles he's shooting out. I guess he's not gonna shoot any more. Oh no, there we go. I was gonna say, are you gonna shoot more guys at me? Make more enemies spawn? But yeah, that's also one of the fun things about the Mega Man games, is there are points where you can just milk enemies for power-ups and whatnot, or weapon refreshes and health refills. Gotta go ahead and... Oops! I hit the circle button by accident. That's what I'm talking about, guys. I was pressing triangle and then grazed the circle button by accident. And I wasn't able to shoot, actually. One of the issues I find I've been having with Mega Man 3 lately is that Mega Man doesn't seem that responsive to turn around and shoot quickly. Not as responsive as he is in some of the other Mega Man games. It feels like an issue specific to Mega Man 3. I know Mega Man 1 could be a little stiff, but Mega Man 3 has got its own little kind of weird issues. And I'm not really getting much health here, so I'm getting energy droplets, which I don't really need. And you know what I could do is I could just use an energy tank. It's not really a big deal. I think I have like 5 or 6 of them or something. And that it happened again. I tried turning around and shooting, and it wasn't responsive enough. Alright, let's go ahead and just switch over to Shadow Man. Because he doesn't want to drop health, obviously. Extra life, that's fine. Let's go ahead and just switch off like that. And there's some health right there. Alright, so for this boss, what we're going to do is end up using... I'm pretty sure it's Quick Man here, so we need to use Gemini Man's weapon. And I might end up using... Oh no, it's Clash Man, or Crash Man. So what we need to do against him is use Hard Knuckle. And, easier said than done on this boss, because look at how slow Hard Knuckle is. Let's go ahead and just use an E-Tank so I don't die. Oh no, I ended up using multiples! Oh, you stupid game. Stupid, stupid game. I mean, I can't really blame the game, but this was fixed, I think, in some other later Mega Man games, where if you use an energy tank, it moves the items, the highlighted item up to, like, your Mega Buster or something like that. That way you don't accidentally use extra energy tanks. But in this, they let you use multiple E-Tanks back to back. And I ended up using, like, 3. I was trying to get out of the menu, and the button I was pressing ended up using more E-Tanks, and that's actually pretty frustrating. I need to use Rush Coil here, or Rush Jet, but I will do Rush Coil because Rush Jet is more important. And I also need to do Shadow Blade here. This is pretty much mandatory, because you got a little guy on the ladder. So you pretty much have to use that weapon. And sometimes I like to go through this part with using Shadow Man's weapon, or Shadow Blade, because it shoots diagonally. Go ahead and slide through that. And you gotta watch out for these spinning things. The direction that they're spinning into is where it's gonna push you. So you can actually end up slipping off of them if you're not paying attention to the direction that they're moving. Alright, first boss. And, this might be Metal Man? Is this Metal Man? It is Metal Man. So we're gonna go ahead and just use our Magnet Missile here. Which is Magnet Man's weapon. And a very good choice against Metal Man. Because Metal Man doesn't actually move unless you get close to him. And one of the tricks to Metal Man is just to not get close. Just sit in the back, jump over his projectiles, and you should be good to go. Alright, so that's the first half of the level. We got a spike hallway here, or spike corridor. Very reminiscent of Mega Man 2. Now notice that I actually intentionally fell down to the left, and if you fall down too far to the right, you don't push the screen over. Or you don't line up with the middle of the screen like you're supposed to. Notice that, like, as I'm moving here, like, Mega Man's always in the middle of the screen. And if you fall down to the right, and you're hugging the right side of the screen won't realign itself correctly. That's what I meant to say. And so it's harder to react to enemies and whatnot when you're hugging the right-hand side of the screen. Trying to not take damage on those things, but if you're playing too fast, it's very easy to just take accidental damage. Or slop damage. Alright, Quick Man. Now we're going to use Gemini Man's weapon. And Quick Man is insanely difficult to do without using sub-weapons here. He is not a favorite boss of mine in this game at all. Whereas in Mega Man 2, I really enjoy fighting him, Buster only. It's much more fair and much more satisfying. But in this, you saw, it took, what, 3 hits and I was dead? The balance in this game is just completely all out of whack. So, it's one of the reasons these Mega Man 2 refights are not my favorite things in the game. It looks like we actually got a little bit of slowdown again. Tiny bit. Look at that. A third of my health bar. So I need to... I was gonna use an E-Tank, but thankfully that laser hit him. But yeah, very frustrating stuff. Very frustrating stuff. Yeah, people I find, you know, myself included, kind of have a love-hate relationship with these Mega Man 2 refights. The balance issue is, I think, the biggest part of it. The guys are so big, they're almost impossible to avoid, and they do a ridiculous amount of damage when they touch you. And that's not just a Mega Man 2 refight issue. Again, that's an issue with other boss fights as well. For some odd reason, touching bosses does way more damage than actually getting hit by something that is obviously more threatening, like a laser. Which that's actually especially interesting for a Mega Man game, because in the early days of Mega Man, boss weaknesses sort of made sense. For instance, a water-based weapon would do significant more damage on a fire-based boss. You know, things like that. But as the series went on, it seems like logic just kind of went out the window. I mean, you could argue logic kind of went out the window pretty early in some of the early Mega Man games. Like, why does Metal Blade work well against Metal Man? But again, you know, some of the other weapon choices or weapon weakness choices do still make sense in games like Mega Man 2, so... Mega Man 3, on the other hand, not as much sense. Especially when you touch a boss. I think they were going by shoot-'em-up logic. You know, if you run into something, you should die almost immediately. They were using shmup logic for Mega Man 3, I guess. So, same thing as before. Just try to destroy a lot of these bubbles. Maybe get some extra lives in the process. We've got 7 lives. Mega Man 3 has always dished out lives and energy tanks, like, you know, Halloween candy. So Mega Man 3 has always been, at least in terms of the amount of, you know, power-ups you can get, one of the easier games in the series. I'd say it's actually probably one of the tougher games in the series from a boss design standpoint. So... but yeah, Flashman, we could use Gemini Laser, but I also like to do Needleman. Needleman is really great. And what's awesome about Needleman's weapon is that it's a rapid-fire weapon, so you don't have to constantly mash the button. And what's really interesting about Flashman here is he doesn't do the same touch damage that other bosses do. Like, I touched him directly, and he didn't take away a third of my health bars. It's really weird. Some really weird design choices. You can sometimes grind out on these little guys too if you want, but it takes a little while, so I don't usually do it. And this is actually a great argument for Rush Marine. So we can actually use Rush Marine right now. And you can actually go above ground, or above ground, above water. I'm at that point in my playthrough where my brain just stops working. I should go back through all my other Mega Man 3 playthroughs on my channel and see if the same thing happened at the same spot. It probably did. It's about that hour mark where... I guess my OBS recording session says it's been 47 minutes so far, so... But close to an hour. It's also really hot today. It's pretty much the beginning of summer for us as of doing this video, and I've got my air conditioning cranking, but it is still warm in my apartment. And when it starts to heat up like that, I start to lose focus and things like that. I like a nice, cool, you know, living space. But when summertime hits, it's tough to do that. And so we got Bubble Man right here, and we're gonna go ahead and switch over to you can do Sparkman or Shadow Blade. Well, we're gonna do Sparkman, and we'll do Shadow Blade right now. Because its verticality is awesome. Not as useful as Metal Man's weapon, because it doesn't shoot in all 8 directions like Metal Man's did, but it's still pretty useful. Still pretty useful overall. And here we go. We've got Shadow Man's level again. And unfortunately, we have to fight Woodman here. Woodman here is absolutely awful. I hate him in this version of the game. He is terrible. It is almost impossible to jump over his leaves, and they do a crap ton of damage. And so what we're going to do is just try to get rid of him as quickly as possible. And then He-Man's at the end of the level, which is actually one of the easier bosses to fight without taking damage. And we've got some unique platforms that actually make their appearance on this level. They basically slip apart when you jump on them. So if you want to jump on them a second time, you need to make sure you're timing your jumps. Otherwise you're going to fall straight through them. And that's actually very important on this part. You get some constant motion. Oh, I was too far over and I fell. You need to be a little better centered on these platforms. And you notice that the checkpoints aren't the best on these Mega Man 2 levels either. You basically get a checkpoint right after the first boss on each level. And then that's it. So if you die at the boss, you gotta go all the way back and, you know, cover ground. Cover ground you've already covered again. Alright, jump straight up. And I like to get rid of these guys because having the darkened arenas is a little difficult to deal with sometimes. Alright, I'm just gonna take my time here. I'm gonna fall through like that. Oh my god, seriously, again. That was my fault. I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't want to run into that whatever the thing is called above. I was gonna bump into it and then probably fall down to my death, but not a huge deal. We still have 5 lives left, but it's very disappointing to die inside some of these levels because the levels themselves I find aren't really that bad difficulty-wise. Even the Mega Man 2 refight levels like this. Alright, just keep jumping up like so. Try it again, not fall. Extra life. Again, like I said, this game hands out extra lives and E-tanks like Halloween candy. I'm just gonna do that, and then we're good. Probably should have done it the last time. Alright, so this is going to be Woodman, and so we're gonna switch over to Needleman's weapon. And we're pretty much guaranteed to take damage here, unfortunately. And his initial shield's gonna block my shots. So we jump. And then jump. It's ridiculous, man. Woodman can just eat a big one. I just... Oh, I hate fighting some of these Mega Man 2 bosses, man. I'm trying to turn around and it's not letting me. Alright, there we go. Jeez. I'm really struggling here, guys. There we go. Alright, last section. So same thing as before. I like to sort of push the screen forward to trigger these guys. Push the screen forward. Push the screen forward. And there we go. Last section. Using my turbo fire. Alright, so Heatman. And we're gonna go ahead and use top spin on him, which is a really, really weird one to use. But I'm gonna try to slide. I don't know if it's gonna work. Slide? Nope, doesn't work. Let's go ahead and use our Top Man on him. Top Man's weapon is really weird. You have to spin, spin, spin. And there we go, we got him. It's a very, very awkward boss sub-weapon to use. But the trick with Heatman is every time you hit him, he sort of flames up and then will shoot across the screen, and he'll land wherever you are on the screen. And so you basically just want to jump over it. And we've got ourselves another Proto Man fight. And there we go, that's it. Now on to the Wily stages. And since we're playing the Japanese version, it's all in Japanese. Yeah, so again, these Rockman Complete Works collections only came out in Japan. Now, interestingly, they were the basis of the Mega Man's 1 through 6 ports for the Mega Man Anniversary collection. So if you want to play these Navi modes without importing these PS1 versions of games, you can actually play the Mega Man Anniversary collection on PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. I don't recommend those versions these days because they have sort of like a softened filter over everything, and they just don't look all that great. Whereas when you play the PS1 versions, they look pretty much identical to the NES games, you know, 240p and whatnot. They look fantastic. So, also with the Mega Man Anniversary Collection versions, you don't get things like Pocket Station support and whatnot. So, something else to consider. But if you do want the Navi modes, that is a way to experience them without having to import these PS1 versions. So the Wily Castle is where, you know, the game really starts dishing out free extra lives and E-tanks and whatnot. As you'll see as we progress through this. We can use Hardman's weapon right here for another extra life. Might as well. Oops. And we just fall down like that and switch back off. And let's actually use Hardman's weapon again. Now what's interesting about Hardman's weapon is that you can actually angle it up and down, which is always a nice feature. And let's go ahead and see if we can jump all the way up here and use the trick I mentioned earlier, just like so. A little tricky to do. We're gonna switch over to Hardman. Get that energy back. Gonna use just my regular Buster shot for this part. So just like before, I can hit these guys from a distance at the top of this ladder. Just timing my shots to where all three projectiles hit him, and not have any, you know, reject off or reflect off. I'm gonna go ahead and use Magnet Man right here. Oops, too slow. Too slow in the PS1 button mashing. Thank you, PS1 controller. Slide through that and just wait. There we go. And I'll go ahead and get that energy. We'll use Rush Coil to get back up, and we'll go ahead and collect that. Alright, and our first boss here, you want to just use Shadow Blade. Makes it a little bit easier because it's a fairly vertical boss, or I don't want to say vertical, but it's a boss that likes to stay high up. So using Shadow Blade is pretty convenient. And there we go. Very easy boss. And honestly, a lot of these Wily Castle Mega Man 3 bosses are actually pretty simple. They're probably on the easier end of, you know, Famicom Mega Man bosses. So we got Beat telling us to go left, and that's because there is an extra life or an energy tank up here. One of the two. Extra life. There we go. And we can just slide through like that. We've got 10 lives. Even though we've died a bunch of times, we still have 10 lives. Alright, so we've got ourselves another bee, and we're going to see if we can try to despawn it. Let's just push over like this. Just like that. These bees are actually really tough to deal with if you don't despawn them. And can we despawn that one? Yep. Good stuff. It makes it so much easier. Alright, we're going to go ahead and just use Rush Jet. Get that health. Get an energy tank. Another energy tank. Mega Man 3, you spoil me. We're gonna go ahead and switch off. Alright, so now we can use Hardman's weapon. We're gonna fight the Yellow Devil. Although this Mega Man 3 version is a little bit easier than the Mega Man 1 version, because the blocks come across the screen a little bit slower. You also have the opportunity to slide underneath some of them. Let's actually switch over to Shadow Blade. I kind of want to see how that works. Because I usually just use Hardman's weapon, not Shadow Blade. But Shadow Blade is an option. And it works pretty well. And that was some weird collision detection. Got hurt by empty space. It's the NES way. It's the 8-bit way, unfortunately. Hitboxes weren't usually the best on 8-bit games, unfortunately. It is what it is. Same goes for, you know, 8-bit computer platforms of the era, other 8-bit platforms like the Master System, so on and so forth. Alright, making our way through this castle pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and just skip those power pellets, power-ups. Another energy tank. How many energy tanks are we at? We're at 8. Let's go ahead and use our rush coil. Switch back to our standard buster. Didn't really need that extra life. I wasn't gonna go back for it. Don't really need that health either. And there is still actually some more slowdown. Interesting. I thought that they had just completely eradicated the slowdown, and when I first played through this version of the game last night, I didn't notice really any slowdown, so it's actually interesting that I'm seeing some of it now. But for the most part, the you know, the slowdown that's important is gone, thankfully. So the majority of the game basically still has no slowdown, which is great. Gonna skip those canisters, don't really need them. Alright, Snake Man weapon time. Let's go ahead and just bring up our menu. So which Mega Man you can hit is just completely random. And for that first phase, it was the top one. That second phase, it was the middle one. And Snake Man just wrecks that guy. And let's go ahead and see what we got here. So, Hardman, we'll replenish that. And on this part, we're gonna end up refighting Mega Man 3 bosses all over again. Can we jump in the middle there? Or, I said middle, but I actually jumped to the right, which was the wrong thing to do. Another extra life, 11 lives. Alright, well, so much for avoiding those guys without taking damage. You know, one thing that's actually kind of cool about this part of Mega Man 3 is it's one of the only parts in the, you know, classic NES games where you can actually go behind foreground objects. It's pretty neat. I wish they actually used that a little more often over the course of the game. It's a cool effect. Alright, and here we go. Mega Man 3 refights. Alright, so for Hardman, we use Magnet Man. And boom, like I said, you don't want to get hit by his arms and remain on top of him, because if you do, you're going to take some serious damage. And that's exactly what happened. It's like a quarter of your health bar. It's a lot of damage. And again, for Top Man, we use Hardman. So I like to just get right next to him so I can hit him as many times as possible. But because I got too close to him... Okay, I thought the game, like, locked up there. Because I got too close to him, I ended up getting hit by his tops. Alright, Gemini Man is Snake Man. Let's switch over to Snake Man. And we're gonna jump and shoot, 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 jump and shoot. Boom, got him. Alright, Magnet Man is actually Spark Man. There we go, get our health back. It's fun just cutting right through these guys with the specials. Especially when you're like me and you just don't do it that often. Alright, so it's Gemini Man now. There we go. A little difficult to hit him. Like, ideally, you probably want to just get close up and hit him that way, but I was trying to just rely on the reflect. Alright, good stuff. And I always actually forget what works against Snake Man. It might be Shadow Blade. No, Shadow Blade is Spark Man. I've tried everything. It's probably Needle Man. It's Needle. Yeah, it's Needle Man. I always forget what works against Snake Man because I always just fight Snake Man with my Buster because it's fun. It's one of my favorite fights in the game, especially just Buster only. Alright. Shadow Man for Spark Man. You notice that I'm trying to pause immediately. And yes, I can cycle through the weapons with the L and R triggers, but, you know, easier said than done when the bosses are in motion. So by bringing up your menu, you save yourself. You get to pause the battle, basically. And this is one of the goofiest boss fight weaknesses. But you basically just dance with Shadow Man, and you beat him. And let's go ahead and replenish Snake Man and replenish Hard Man. So I went Hard Man for one of the upcoming bosses. Okay. Okay, and I don't think I need Magnet, but we'll do it anyway. Jeez, man. I have a crazy amount of extra lives. Alright, so what I'm going to do is actually use Hard Man on this first part. 13 lives. Wow. GG, Mega Man 3. GG. Alright, so we have to hit this turret first. And then you can also use Hard Man on this one, but what I like to do, and a friend actually gave me this tip years ago, is just use Rush Jet. And I can actually just use my Turbo Fire. And there we go. Nice strategy on that boss fight. And this is pretty much it. We're at the end of Mega Man 3. We've got one more level. And it's pretty much just a boss fight. That was a fake Dr. Wily. He sure fooled us. Okay, so what I'm going to do is switch over to Rush Jet. And this is what I'm talking about with just how this game just inundates you with just goodies later on in the playthrough. Go ahead and switch off. If you switch off, if you like reselect Rush Jet, then you can, it'll actually disappear so you won't use any energy. So for this first phase, I want to use Shadow Blade. Alright, and I'm going to actually switch right back to Rush Jet. And just come on up here like that. And now what we're going to do is use Snake Man's weapon. I'm going to wait for his projectile. And that's it. And we just beat Rockman 3 on Rockman 3 Complete Works on PS1, the Navi mode. Now, what's kind of cool about beating this on Navi mode is it does actually have an extended ending, which is a nice little bonus. Alright, so that's it. We beat Mega Man 3, and, or Rockman 3. I might try to get some of the other versions of these games in the future. I would really like to try Mega Man's or Rockman's 4 through 6, because 4 through 6 apparently has full remix soundtracks that you can play with, whereas these earlier games, Rockman's 1 through 3, do not have that. There are some remix tunes that can be activated via cheats, but they're not even the correct tunes for the correct stages sometimes, based on what I've read. So for these first 3 releases, they're pretty much very true to the original NES games, and yeah, no real remix music. Yeah, looking forward to maybe trying out 4 through 6. 4 at the very least. 4 is one of my favorites of the first 6 Mega Man games, and I would really love to hear that with the full-on remix soundtrack. So maybe we'll get a copy of that sometime in the future, down the road. If you guys would like to see more of these, definitely let me know. Yeah, for those of you guys, for some odd reason, new to Mega Man, I've got a lot of Mega Man playthroughs, so if you like this playthrough, go back through my my Let's Play list. I actually have a Mega Man specific playlist that has all my Mega Man videos in one spot, so if you want to check out some other Mega Man playthroughs, like my previous playthroughs of Mega Man 3 or 1 through 6, you know, I do have those available on my channel, so definitely check those out. Yeah, this Rockman Complete Works series, though, it is pretty cool. I'm glad I picked up this copy. The big appeal to me was playing Mega Man 3 with pretty much no slowdown. It was told to me when I did my Sega Genesis mini stream and I played Mega Man the Wily Wars, and what they did with that version of Wily Wars on the Genesis mini was that they got rid of all the slowdown. Whereas the Genesis version was just, or Mega Drive version was just plagued with slowdown, even more slowdown than the NES games, and it was really, really tough to get into as a result. But yeah, as I was playing that, it was mentioned to me that the Complete Works series on PS1 also doesn't have slowdown. Although it's not entirely slowdown removed, as we experienced in this playthrough. There were a couple of parts in Wily's Castle that had some slowdown, along with Needle Man Stage version 2. That also had some slowdown, so... But for the most part, the slowdown's gone, and the games are definitely more playable as a result. I mean, they've always been playable games. I've never minded the slowdown too much myself, although I do think that Mega Man 3 slowdown is a little jarring in this day and age, as opposed to when it was current on the market. Yeah, these are great ways to play the games. I do notice the audio actually is kind of interesting. It almost sounds like there's a reverb effect on everything, and so the audio sounds more distant in this game. It's something I didn't mention through the during the playthrough itself. I play with headphones on all the time, and so things like that are very noticeable to me. And yeah, so they're not perfect audio-wise because of that, but overall, gameplay-wise, visually speaking, and whatnot, they're fantastic. They're great ways to play the games if you don't have an NES, but you got a PS1 and you like to do imports. These are definitely really good alternatives, and the bonuses are really nice. I'd really like to figure out Pocket Station support sometime and try to get some of those bonus modes going. You can probably check out some YouTube videos. I think there's a mode where, in Pocket Station mode, you can refight bosses from the games, but they'll have much larger health bars. And so the boss fights are basically more difficult. Kind of like the Mega Man X5, where you refight the bosses and they're at like level 99 or whatever, and I don't know if it's 99 in that game, but they're at a higher level, so their health bars are huge compared to when you fight them the first time. It seems something very similar in this. So, but yeah, some interesting features in these versions too that are worth looking into. So, but as you can see, we've got our extended ending here, which is really nice. I really enjoy this. It's a nice bonus that you don't get with the NES original. And it does have remixed music here as well. Now, what's funny is I actually did a previous attempted recording of this, and I kept slipping off of those cloud platforms. I would be dead center, and the game would just, like, push me off to the left or right. And I kind of wish that first playthrough was better, but I just started trailing off and not making any sense with my words, so I had to get rid of that footage. So maybe I'll try to post that footage like separate to one of my maybe side YouTube channels, and I'll link it in the description box below. But yeah, there's some weird glitches I've encountered in this version, but I think it's pretty much... I'm pretty sure I've encountered them in the NES ones too before. I've played Mega Man 3 a lot on the NES, and those cloud platforms have always given me trouble over the years, you know, being pushed off the sides. But it was really egregious in my most recent attempted playthrough right before this recording, so yeah, we'll see if I can find that footage and upload it separately. So, but yeah, that's it. Rockman Complete Works, guys. I don't know what any of this stuff means. If any of you guys speak Japanese or you know of a translated guide for this game, feel free to post it in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to you know, take a look at that. So, but yeah, Rockman 3 Complete Works. Very cool stuff. And actually, you know what? This is I think this is unlocked. I think this just unlocked. So I might actually have to try to save my data. Is this like a time attack mode or something? I think it's some sort of time attack speedrun mode. Very interesting. Interesting. I did not know this unlocked, so I'm gonna actually have to pop in one of my PS1 memory cards and try to save my data. And let's see what we got here. Looks like it might be a boss rush mode actually. So, and do I have all the weapons? I only have just my basic stuff. So. Oops. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Interesting. I had no idea this mode was in here, but it looks like you have to beat the game to unlock it, and maybe that's what that Japanese message was saying. Yeah, I noticed that on the menu system, when I first played this game, that the bottom slot was blocked out, and I figured, that looks suspicious. Maybe you unlock something with that, and it looks like we do. But yeah, I'm not going to actually play all the way through this, guys. It's actually kind of neat, though, that you do unlock something like this. It's another nice bonus for this game. So, yeah, something else worth checking out if you do ever look into this version of the game in the future. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, subscribe. I've got a lot of Let's Plays here and many more to come. For everyone already subbed, thank you for your usual support. And until the next one, take it easy.